Okay, what is up, guys, and welcome back to the Neon Gaming channel here. So, I think you might have a question on where have I been over the last decade or so, as far as my channel, and why have I disappeared. But I haven't posted a lot of videos lately, and as some of you guys know, I'm actually a little sick right now. I have a cold. So if my voice sounds any different, or there's multiple things. I've changed my microphone headset, and I've also um, have a little bit of a cold. So that is something because of the seasons is changing. So in this video, I just want to touch on about distributed denial of service attacks or DDoS attacks and stuff. Now, I personally don't dabble or do DDoS, DOS, or any kind of other disabling factor. I just make this video to, I don't know, kind of help people, especially the ones that kind of don't know what it is and how it works and how so simple it is to fix because the average booter, um, I don't have no problem telling these secrets, but I think the average booter doesn't want you to know that pretty much every booter, as far as I'm considered, the typical booter is pretty much powerless because of how IP addresses work, or internet protocol addresses, and also just basic internet networking. And a lot of people don't have the knowledge or know-how or really understand about everything. So I'm in this video. I'm kind of gonna break down what a DDoS attack is, how it works, the different methods of a DDoS attack, how long do they last, common questions people ask, and can you be DDoS forever or something like that. So there's a lot of myth. There's a lot of people scare tactics. Booters like to use. There's a lot of threats. Um, there's a lot of things I've seen, especially on PS4, Xbox One, 360, PS3, but 360 and PS3, there's pretty much nothing I can do to help you there. But I think this tutorial could pretty much cover everyone. Um, but I'll have to run down, first of all, what is a DDoS attack, and the true this is gonna show you exactly what a DDoS attack is. And a DDoS attack is not something a little 2-year-old kid really think it is. It's a very harmful and destructive, annoying part of internet networking. And DDoS attacks has been a concept and could be executed. It's been thought of for many years, and I mean, it's basically. Well, I'm gonna give you this diagram here. So I got this diagram, and I think it makes the best sense. So this is in this case, this is how a botnet DDoS attack would work, or any DDoS attack in general. So you have an attacker, and let's just say in this case that would be me or someone else, or host, or if they pay, for third party, and they would initiate an attack by one acquiring your IPv4 address. Most people have IPv4s. I should look this up. PV IPv4. And IPv4 is that numeric number you see, which is the decibels, and the IPv6, which I'll talk about in another video. But basically, a DDoS attack is an attacker would initiate an attack after this person has acquired your public IP address through a game server or a P2P application of some sort, or anyhow, or clicking on a link on a cell phone or some kind of other many ways to get someone's IP address. But basically, they would get your IP, they would initiate an attack to a control server, and then this server would send out directly would send out spoof packets and overflood. It would flood the victim's router, internet server, internet connection, and pretty much anything else he has going on there. It could be a DNS server, anything. But basically, what would happen is that all of these zombie infected computers, which this is a botnet nodes, they would all send traffic, just random empty bytes of data, just a bunch of garbage, and it would pile on top of the victim, which could be, your standard home internet connection, router, or server, and that will just slow down everything. And it slow it down so much where it's unusable, and that's it. And it's denial of service or distributed denial of service, as the name inclines, because it's denying a service in most of the case, that someone would pay for if you have Time Warner, Spectrum, or any other major or local ISP. You would pay so much a month for their internet hosts and their ISP to do their job. And when you have these kind of attacks, it basically just takes down your internet by flooding it with random bullshit inside of your router. And it doesn't really, it's not like a real scary thing. I mean, it's not, oh, I'm never going to get online again. That's another question. Will you ever get online again? A lot of people get this. A lot of people say, oh, I'm going to be offline forever, or some voodoo gets mad at me, he'll boot me for days, weeks, months. Okay, first of all, there's a really good number of ways to stop an attack, and personally myself, I have mine set up where if I ever got attacked by either a botnet, a server, no matter how many gigabits per second it's pushing, or whatever the case may be, I can just easily just flush out and release the DHCP, and it would automatically just give me a new um, IP address, and that's basically what you're gonna need, because the attacker has your IP, and there's multiple ways of getting an IP address. But for example, in PS4, the most common way to get a person's public IP address would be through PlayStation parties. If you join someone's PlayStation party, that party is not hosted on a dedicated server, meaning everybody in the party connects to Sony and Sony connects to all of you. No, how it works is that you connect to Joe, Joe connects to you, and then you guys both sends information between each other to make the chat seamless and workable. Now, the problem with that is if Joe has a APR table or some kind of other spoofer, or you know any kind of other stuff, which I'm not going to go into much detail on how that works, but basically it can just monitor the traffic that's on the network, um, and it's legal to do. It's legal. It's nothing illegal as far as I know under a law as far as cybersecurity. I mean, it's legal to monitor your own network, but when they do that, since you're in a PlayStation party or in a game like GTA 5, they would get your public IP address. Now, there's been a lot of debate over the time. Now, a lot of people say that you can't get usernames. Once upon a time, there was popular software where you could get usernames, and I think Sony eventually put out a patch last year, and that pretty much broke that for everyone as far as a public service wise. But I know I've heard a lot of guys claim they have their own coded software and they've broke the encryption and maybe they have a username thing, but it's not mainstream, and as far as I know, if it does exist, it only exists as a small basis. But usernames with IPs is very rare nowadays. So if you do have someone that breaks the encryption or whatever, then that's terrible. But there's only two ways people can get your IP address on the PlayStation 4: parties and games that have P2P connectivity. And games for that example, and let me pull up a P2P diagram. Uh, Let me just go ahead. Peer to peer. It's a computer network where all here, that's a good example right there, that picture where basically you in that party is all sharing information, and that's how you guys are talking to each other. It's not where it's going to one server like in this picture here, that all of you guys goes to the server and the server goes back. So that's what P2P is, and the only games that have P2P is the notorious why people get booted or on Call of Duty is because on Call of Duty and pretty much all other Call of Duty games, I'm not aware of them having dedicated servers, dedicated back in high quality servers. Um, that's not only for holding stats and pushing out updates, but for as matches. When you have a match with someone, when you're getting into a game, they don't have a P2P. And that's why Call of Duty booters and little 3-year-olds was so popular um, at the time, because one main reason why they were so popular is because Call of Duty did failure as a game host. I mean, either Treyarch or Activision want to save money, but it really compromises people's security by doing so. Now, another example is GTA 5. GTA 5 is a massive game. There's 30 players per lobby, and they all run off this friendly thing called P2P in GTA Online public sessions. That goes for invite-only sessions, public sessions, death matches. People can still get your IP address in death matches, invite onlys. The only way they can't really get your IP address is if you're in a solo session by yourself or a private invite only with people you only trust. Um, and the same goes for parties in PlayStation. I mean, a lot of people think, well, if Buddha joins my party and he leaves the party, he's okay. No, 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 no. That's not how it works. Okay. If a booter already joined the party, as soon as he presses the X buttons on his controller, it takes him about 5 seconds to pull pretty much everyone's in there. Everybody's IP pulled and copied. So they have a copy of it already. So blocking the user, deleting the user, doing that's not gonna work. Now I'm not telling people to run and hide in fear. No, I'm not telling people to lock their parties, and what there is a new feature where you can turn public parties into private parties and private parties into a public party at any time. But anytime you encounter a booter or someone that's threatening, I recommend to just block them, block them and delete those people and don't associate yourself with those people anymore. That's what I do. Even though I'm not scared, I just don't want to have the trouble of. I'm lazy in first place, so I mean, for me, it's easy for me. I can just pull out my phone, go into the router, which I'll explain to you in another step of this video, and basically fix this. Um, and I can change my IP address in about, I don't know, a minute or so. So, and that's no problem for me because I have a dynamic IP. But I'm gonna go over here back on more on DDoS attacks. This is a good article from Encapsula, which is a IT company, and they study in cybersecurity. But there's two differences between DOS and DDoS attacks, as you can see here. A DOS is a distributed, or not distributed, denial of service, which is basically a smaller attack. A distributed denial of service is a way bigger attack that could mess up a lot of things. And we can go over the different attack methods. You have UDP flood, which is common, SYN flood, which is common, ping of death, not common, NTP amplification, DNS flood, which is deadly, and DNS amplification is really deadly. But I don't really want to explain attack methods to people, but basically those are what come back over here to this guy would be using as a different method to get those packets there in a more efficient way to get his internet off faster, quicker, better, and can hold it down for longer. Now, um, the problem with this is that most people really don't understand that this standard concept right there. But now, since you have a little bit more of a feel of what a DDoS attack is, then let's talk about ways to combat it and why I just sit and Alright, so let's go back to here. Alright, so I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna explain now on this side is what I think and why I think things are like this. So back to what I was saying. Um, what can you do to curve DDoS attacks? Since I've sat here and talked about really what a DDoS attack is and why they're so harmful, and what's the big thing to do? Well, one of the big things you can do is you will need to know what a PPOE, which is or DHCP, and an ISP password and usernames. Now, if you're under 18 and you don't have your own internet connection, which I know most younger kids and even some adults don't know their PPOE or username passwords or pretty much anything. Now, I would show my personal router, um, but I just don't want to do that. But I'll go ahead and give you some examples of what you can do to curve it. Now, another big question I get, I should run into this right quick while I'm thinking about it, is, and I get this a lot from people that ask me about how do I protect myself from DDoS attacks, or is VPNs any good? Okay, let me explain to you what a VPN is, okay? And VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. Now, a VPN is where you, the host, would go to an encrypted tunnel through a VPN protocol, which would transfer your internet connection to a proxy. It's like a proxy, same thing, but it would transfer to a VPN server, and then it would go from the VPN server to the internet, and it would go to the internet, and this tunnel between the VPN is encrypted, so attackers out here can't affect you going to here. Now, the VPN, once you're here, will be your public IP address will change, your location probably will change, and everybody out here in the internet, which all the bad guys are surrounded, will be spoofed and they will be tricked and they will not know your real IPv4 address or IPv6 if you have it. It's very rare, and they won't know. So, and that's how VPNs work. Now, can I get a VPN for DDoSing or anti distributed denial of service? Yes, you can. Um, is it beneficial to me? Well, to me personally, no. And I think most people that have a dynamic IP address, I still say no. It's not useful in the sense of I really need it. No, it's not useful. Now, the only time I see VPN is useful is in situations where you care about your original IP address being leaked or exposed. But that's another thing I need to touch on. When it comes down to your real IP address, people get this wrong. There's a lot of scare tactics, I think. Booters would try to employ and say that I know where you live at. Yeah, I know your exact location. I know your exact address. Okay, let me just go ahead and make this clear. IPv4 protocol, okay, it's not 100% accurate. Okay, it's not 100% accurate. Never has been. So I don't know how to explain this to you because a lot of people, especially 2 year olds, like or some of the guys that don't really know what they're doing, but that people will say, "Well, I know your location." Well, yes, that's true to a fact, but the point is they're only really the only thing IP address really sustains to is your ISP and where your ISP data server is. It doesn't necessarily reflect on where your household is or where you live at or your exact, zip code and address. For instance, you could pull somebody IP from Verizon in New York, right? New York, New York. But New York is a big ass city. So you don't know where in New York they're from, but you know that they're in New York, and you know they're in America, you know they're in the United States, you know they're in New York, you know the weather, time, and stuff in New York, and you know that they're in New York, you know their state, but you don't know exactly where they reside, what block, what number, approximate, because that IP addresses don't really um, have that information in them. So, in other words, having a VPN just to hide your real location is something you can do, but to me, it does not make sense to do. Doesn't make sense to use or do. But VPNs for all kinds of other security encryption. Now, let's say if you was having some kind of throttling, like if your internet company is trying to slow down your internet, or maybe you um, are in a country where there's a lot of firewalls and you want to get around these firewalls, or you can't access certain apps. This is a big thing in China where they block, Google, YouTube, and all other Western media. Then yeah, a VPN can be used to bypass these certain locks and restrictions. Now, in those cases, VPNs are really useful because if you're in Canada and you want American Netflix, instead of Canadian Netflix, you can use a VPN on your network or Wi-Fi, and you can have that United States um, Netflix without having those restrictions from Netflix the company. So to get around, basically VPNs can spoof your location to pretty much anywhere in the world that's a VPN server at, except maybe North Korea. Um, but you could basically make yourself appear to the internet in whatever service you're using, that you're in Taiwan, China, Afghanistan, pretty much anywhere in the world, even in multiple places in the United States. You can make yourself like you in California, or pretty much anywhere that has a dedicated VPN server there. And there's a lot of people, but I don't really recommend VPNs. If you do get a VPN, I recommend these guys: CyberGhost and Viper VPN, Viper and CyberGhost and IPVanish. But I really just recommend CyberGhost and Viper. They're very good. They have good backends. They have tons and tons of servers all over the planet. And I'm not sponsored by none of these people, nor do I make any money from YouTube because I do not monetize my videos. I simply make videos for fun, so I don't really make ad revenue or anything from it at this time. But basically, that's what a VPN is. And yeah, there's no really other practical use for a VPN other than if you're trying to get around restrictions or trying to get American Netflix in Canada or some other example where they're trying to trace you or track you, and you would need to look like you're in California, or look like you're in China, or look like you're in a different part of the world, so you can have access to a different application, or different type of Netflix or YouTube or different stuff and offerings. But most people in America won't have to deal with this anyhow, because most of all the stuff originate here in the country. So VPNs, they do have DDoS protected VPNs that you can buy, but I highly don't recommend buying them if you have a dynamic IP address, so system, even if you have static. But now I'm gonna kind of run down on, since I've run over VPNs and how they work and why I think they're useless and useful. They're not 100% useless. They are useful in certain applications, in certain situations. A VPN is good. Um, but a good rule of thumb, if you're trying to hide stuff, if you're doing illegal stuff, if you're file sharing, if you're trying to hide something from your ISP, internet service provider, then this would be something you would want to consider doing. But make sure you get a good VPN that doesn't log. You don't want a logging VPN. You don't want an IP that has a server log. I'm pretty sure Viper and CyberGhost don't log, but you can check their policy before you purchase their IP, their services. So, but back to what I was saying. So I've pretty much ran over what a DDoS attack is, how it works, and what's P2P, and briefly touched on how it works and why VPNs are essential, and kind of just explaining what I get this question a lot, and kind of just breaking it down and explaining why VPNs are just pretty much, I mean, for a certain user is good. Now we're gonna come back over here to why and how you can change. Now for me, I personally have a Netgear router. So mm, for me, I would use a Netgear router, and this router would be what I would use. And there's a lot of popular routers, and unless this is the part where, and I'll actually put an annotation in the I think in the video when I upload it, but this is the part where it gets really interesting because in this part I'm gonna go over how to combat distributed denial of service attacks and what information you can get and people around you to teach you. Now, if you really want to learn, and there's only a limited ability I can really speak about how to stop this, but in other words, I only can do what I can do. So, first of all, let me explain you the difference between static and dynamic IP addresses. So, we'll come over here to whatismyipaddress.com. It's the best one to learn and figure out your IP address, and it kind of has a lot of guides and tutorials on the website, but you would have to click on my IP or IP lookup, and which I'm not going to do that for purposes now, but you could later to find your personal IP address, or you can search up on Google what is my IP, or ask Alexa, Google Home, Apple Home, pretty much any assistant. Just ask what is your public IP address or what is your IP address on pretty much anything, and they would tell you that number, which is most likely an IP4 address, which is 111.111.111.111. So it's 4 sets, and it could be less numbers or more numbers. So depending on your internet company. So let's just go ahead and run this down. A static IP address is like this picture here, which I picked it out. So static, sitting still. Dynamic, moving, exercising. So when you have an internet service provider or ISP, which would be CenturyLink, Spectrum, Time Warner, Comcast, or Xfinity, as most people know it, or any other ISP in general, you would either get assigned a dynamic or a static IP. A dynamic IP address is which most people use and is most common, and you see them a lot with cable and DSL, coaxial cable and DSL deployments is dynamic, which is it basically means constantly changing. Um, Now, dynamic IPs are not more powerful, which just clearly says, but the thing of what the big benefits of dynamic, which is this is standard now. Most people have dynamic IP addresses, and there. What's the good thing about it is you can easily change that IP if you know how, which I'll go over on how to change a dynamic IP address in the first place. But that's a really complex issue, and that's something I can't really like get into like because I have to know about the router and what the company is. So static, which is there's not all hope lost. If you have a static IP address, um, it can change. It doesn't supposed to change on its own. It won't change automatically, and it definitely won't change if you unplug it for an hour or so. But basically, static IP address can be changed. And I think one of the main ways of changing the static IP, and I think one of the easiest ways is having two routers. Now I know it sounds crazy, but if you get a router from an internet company, CenturyLink or whatever, ask them to send you out too. I know they might charge you more per month or different things, but here's the thing about it. You don't have to go into your router and configure any settings. If you have an extra router, you would just plug in the same two of the same routers. You would plug in the other router, and the other router would automatically get sense that you've put a different router on your network, and your network will automatically give you a new IP address. That's if you have two routers. And you can easily get another router from your company, and that would most likely send it out for a fee, a small fee, or you explain them what you want. Now, in my case, I have a bunch of routers laying around for me. I have a bunch of routers that it's good for me. I have a bunch of routers that, in my case, would serve pretty much all of my needs and more, and wouldn't be an issue in any sense of the way. So it wouldn't be an issue as far as using, getting, and just changing them out. And when you do that, it basically, no matter if you have a static or dynamic, it automatically changes your IP address if you have two of the same routers. You plug in a different router, it gives you a new IP address most of the time from your ISP. Um, because it's already programmed with, which I'm going to explain to you how that works in a minute. But basically, that's it. So statics can be changed, and static means it doesn't change automatically, and it doesn't change as easy as a dynamic would. A dynamic can change, if you unplug it for a little while, it may change, and it changes all the time. So if a DDoSer or someone that claims to be a booter or something gets your IP address in March, let's say they get their IP address today, which is the 21st of recording this. Um, let's say they get your IP address today, and they say, "Oh, I got your IP address forever." Okay, they get it today, and if you have a dynamic IP by next, I say 2 3 days, you might have a new IP address, and when they'll try to keep hitting that IP offline, and that IP is no good no more. Now, if you have a static, it kind of sucks, but you can still change statics if you know what I'm about to cover in the next segment. In this segment, I'm going to go over why, what, when, and how of how this works. So, this is what it is. To touch on it, dynamic. It's just this is what uh, a representation of an IP address would be. This is not my IP address. This is a stock IP address to this website, but this is what a IPv4 address will look at. It's separated by dots. 66.171.248.170, and you can change. So you can change your IP, and it will. But yeah, another thing that's what I was reading right here. They cost extra. Static IP addresses do cost extra, and a lot of time, um, um, a ISP, internet service provider, will charge extra for static IPs, and they're pretty much only on request if you only request it. Now, the benefits of a static IP, if you have a blazing fast internet connection, maybe something like a fiber, 1,000 up, 1,000 down, or 300 plus, or something like that, then what it is that that IP is one IP address, so it's not changing every 5 minutes, and it's a lot easier to host a stable connection. So that is pretty much why statics are used as far as a really fast internet connection. But most ones is cheaper and easier to use, and it protects better against DDoS attacks. Would be the dynamic IP address protocol, and there's two of them. So I'm gonna go ahead and explain how I would change mine. Now, in my Netgear router, I'm not gonna sign in it, but I'm just gonna show you some stock images of what would be done, and I'll kind of try to. I can't really tell you how to change it, what to do. I mean, I can't hold everyone's hand, but I can just touch bases on how to do it for this particular router. And I'm pretty sure everyone's not gonna have a Netgear. So if you really want to know how to do it, you would just need to learn how to get into your router and your admin password, which should be all written on the router. Your router login and your admin password of the internals of your router and the access code should be printed on your router. So, but basically, what would you would do in a typical stance is that you would type generically. This is not mine, but generically, you would type um, 192.168.1.1, right? And it would go in any address bar, any search address bar. You can do this on a phone, tablet, pretty much anywhere where you can search the internet, and just search this number in an address bar in Chrome, Safari, or iPhone, iOS, anything. So And this number should be printed on your router. If not, you can have a little chat with a. You can call your internet company and you can talk to them, and they could walk you through on everything I'm talking about right now. But this video is to serve purpose on what I know and kind of clear up some of the water. So, and you use this IP address to get into your router. Now, once you get to your router, you will have a software interface, and this is probably what it would look like, something like this. If you have Netgear, you would have something like this here. Okay, it's basically the internals of your router. Your router has software on it, just like your PS4 has a software and Windows 7 has a software. Some people may not understand that, but your router has an interface. This is the interface of your router. When you type in those numbers, which is printed on your router, everybody has a different number. If you're unsure about your router, or if your router doesn't have labels or sticker on it, you can just search up a generic list, and there's pretty much for every model router that exists, there's pretty much a default password. And if you've never been in there before, then there should be a default password. But you could ring up your ISP, your company, your customer support, and they should be able to give you that access that you need and kind of give you a better individual basis, better than what I can do, because I can't help everybody. But once you get in here, you will have something looking like this. You will have your Netgear interface, which Netgear Genie. This is kind of like what mine looks like this, right? My firmware version a little higher than that, but basically this is what you would see if you had a Netgear Nighthawk or a Netgear router in general. And this is an example of a Netgear um, Nighthawk or any router's sticker. You know, it would say the capacity 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, how fast the Wi-Fi, what it supports. If you have a 5 gigahertz, always use the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi band. But if you come over here, most routers, it will say router login. This would be the HTTP slash whatever, just type in the numbers. In this case, it would probably be 192 whatever numbers, and then we have to type in your username, which most likely is admin, your password is most likely password. But in a lot of cases, that's not true. So always check printed on your router somewhere that this information would be printed there somewhere. And it's different. This is not your Wi-Fi password and username. This would be totally different. So you would just follow whatever's here. And once you get into here, you would have different things. So you would have advanced security, access. You would have access to everything. But inside of your router, you would need to find something called PPOE, PPOE, or DHCP, which however whatever protocol your ISP uses, and different because a lot of routers have troubleshoot things in it, and it has built in the software of the router different things you can use. Now you can one way a dynamic can release this IP address, the easiest way is to have a PPOE or DHCP ISP password and username. Now most ISPs that would be the account, whoever owns the account, that would be their personal information. For instance, for an ISP, in my situation, for fiber, I think they would use the account number and they would use a password, whatever the password they give you. Now, if you're unsure about these two things and what you need, well, you can always call up your local ISP and figure out your PPOE, your DHCP, ISP password, and password and usernames for connecting your internet to the WAN, WAN. So, I'm going to type that, WAN, WAN. So, you're gonna need that, and these are special passwords, just like your account number. And if you have an email address with the company, it would most likely be your email and password in the first place to connect to the ISP's server and get your internet working. Now, in the router, you would simply want to find, in Netgear case, WAN setup, which is right here, right? You would go to LAN, you can go to QoS, but I'll explain that later. But you would go to WAN or LAN setup, and you would basically go into WAN, and in my case, you would go to WAN. I'm not saying go to WAN. I'm saying in my case, yes. You would go to WAN, and it will have a stock password. It would have your ISP email, or I mean not email, but ISP username. Now you can copy that username, but the password would be blacked out in little black dots. Okay, and to get that password, what you would need to do is call into whoever you have your internet, and that anyone on the phone, the customer support, could give you that password for your account. Now, if you're not the owner of the account and you don't know maybe the social security number on the account or a credit card or pretty much all that, then get your parents involved and explain to them what you want to do and have your parents talk to them about it. And if your parents don't know too much about it, tell your parents to let you talk to the representative and you tell them what you're looking for. And that would be the ISP password and username that you have for your service. Once you have that, you would go configure your WAN, and you basically would backspace the username or password, and you would type random crap in there, and you would save it. And that officially disconnects your internet connection from the server, the ISP's, the main central server. You just type some random stuff in there and confirm it. It's not correct, so you won't be able to pull an IP address from the server. Now, what you want to do again is get that username that you copied from earlier, and you want to put that back in there, and then you want to get what the your internet company, whoever it may be, their knowledge. And once you get their knowledge, you would take that and you'll put that back in the computer. And once that's back into the computer, what will happen is that they will assess it, and you would type it back in. You would hit save or confirm or accept or anything that's in your router. In this case, it would be accept, and that's it. Then you can reconnect and you can just search up what is my IP address, or you could take a picture of your old IP, or if you can't access the internet because you're under a DDoS attack, you can always go into your router. Your router will never stop working unless a power issue happens or your router has been compromised in some other way. But most of the time, with a standard DDoS attack, you always can access the internals of your router. That's not hard to do. So, you've got your router, you do that, you do what I've explained to you, and really you can talk to the internet company provider, and you can get the admin username password for your router there, and that'd be a lot simpler to do. And you can get that, and you all you have to do is type random bullcrap in there, accept it, save it, and then that'll officially disconnect you from the server. Type in your PPOE or DHCP username and password from your ISP that you pay monthly most of the time, and that will reconnect you to the server, and most likely will give you a new IP address. Um, and in my experience, I've seen that happen, and it's really simple two-step process, and it doesn't take that long to do. And after you know what the information is, you've got familiar of what type of router interface you have and what to click on. And it's really trial and error. You have to read, and it's trial and error. And you can't be afraid of going in there and trying it. So, but you would look for WAN setup, in other words. But and if you still can't, if you still have problems, you always can call your internet company and explain to them the issue, and they can, on their end, sign into your router, and the person you talk to can kind of explain to you what's going on and how to curb this issue. This is another example of router login, right here. Another example. And your Wi-Fi password and network key has nothing to do with that. This is what you need, and it's on pretty much all um, expensive routers. So, or modern, any not old routers, but yeah, that kind of explains it. So I'm running this over again. PPOE, ISP password, internet service provider, which is basically anyone you have internet from. Need those. If you have a static IP address, it's a little bit more difficult, but that technique I was talking about with changing that ISP would work. Another way you could do it, and a little bit more expensive way than just configuring the setting, would be, again, like I talked about earlier, would be having two of the same router. And especially if you have a dynamic IP, or not dynamic or static, but this is more beneficial to people that have static IP, which would be you could just switch out the router and it'll change the IP address. So, like I was saying, really because of how it works, and you can just change it. It's not hard. So you having two routers is two of the same routers is something that is a good safeguard. And if you do have a static and it's annoying, then you can change it by just switching out the router because it gives you all new settings to that specific router. And most of the time, it would pull a new IP from the server in that case. So I just saw a good example of a PPOE. Just looking, yeah, right here. Access the server, password, something like that. I didn't see. I saw it a second ago, but basically that's pretty much it. Yeah, right here. Yeah, PPOE authentication, PPOE username, which you get from your company. You get your password and communication type. You can put continuous or DSL or cable or whatever you have, and you would just leave all THL and whatever to stock, and you would get this. So this is a good example of router stuff. So um, this is what you can do as far as that. So I know it's a little confusing, and this video is pretty long. I think what this video is like uh 47 minutes, but um yeah, I know it's pretty long, but I mean I could have made it shorter, but in other words, I'm trying to give like a full shed of light of what to do, how to do, and what I expect and what happens. So I'll try to do is I'll try to leave annotations for parts of the video that kind of run through different segments, but I didn't mean to turn this into a podcast or a vlog or something. I just wanted to kind of go over everything. So, but back to what I was saying, if you have a static, two routers, and that little trick I told you about the settings with that, that'll work. Another thing that could work is to factory data reset your router, and that's another option you have inside of these lists here. You can go to factory data reset the router or initialize the router to default settings, and that will ask you, most likely it will ask you to type in your, again, back to PPOE or ISP password again for your account, which you can easily get from your representative or respective internet company or whoever that provides your internet. So it's good to be informed. It's good to know how to protect against distributed denial of service attacks or denial of service attacks, and kind of breaking down on what a VPN is, why is it good, why is it not, is it worth the money, and is it worth time, safety, and happiness on playing video games and enjoying life. So if you ever have a booty, if you ever have a booter or anyone that says, "Oh, I'm gonna take off your internet for like 4 or 5 hours," well, tell them to go fuck themselves and just change your IP address. And once you learn how to change your IP address, you basically have all the power, and the booter is useless. No matter, I don't care how many times booters get in parties and talk shit. Uh, There's nothing they really can talk shit about, other than the fact that they can tell you your IP address, which you can look up for yourself. If most booters don't even know how to pull IP, but if they did, they could probably just tell your IP address, um, which is your state and country. If you don't live in America, that would be Canada or any other country, China, whatever. And it would tell you your state and region. It would tell you that, yeah, you live in, for me, Texas. It'll say Texas, Dallas, right? Or United States of America, Texas, Dallas, and it'll give you some kind of false zip code that's not really 100% accurate in most cases. The only thing it really represents is where the ISP is, wherever your main central server is located, not your address, not exactly where you live at. No, 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 no. I don't know why it's a falsehood. It's a really scare tactic, but in other words, a lot of booters want you to believe that I know exactly where you live at from your IP address, which is laughable because, yeah, they might know your state, but I mean, knowing that I live in Dallas and knowing where the fuck I live in Dallas is a two different. That's a whole different story. Dallas got big. It's a big city. It's got 10, 11 blocks. It's got west side, north side. It's big all over. You could be in the North District. You could be close to Dalhart. You could be by the aquarium. You could be downtown. You could be anywhere. So especially it's laughable. It's like a joke, really, because look at New York. You pull an IP address from New York. Oh, I know you live in New York. I'm like, yeah, I live, and you say it. Yeah, I live in New York. I live in New York City. So what? How you gonna find me? I mean, you better try harder. You better be. I'm like the guy on that commercial. You better be quicker than that. Seriously, I have to get a little bit smarter than that because that's not telling person anything. Now I think I'm gonna make another one of these videos on how to protect yourself as far as passwords. I don't want to make that video in this video because this video has been going on for at least an hour. And I don't want to put more time on this video because it's already going to have to be stepped down in quality for me to upload it. Well, I'll probably just upload it like it is in 1080, but hopefully the file size ain't 20 gigabytes. Lord have mercy, I don't want to be sitting here for a while editing and getting. I mean, you know what? I'm not. You know, matter of fact, I'm lazy. I'm not gonna edit the video. Every problem that happened in this video is gonna stay this way. I'm not editing. I'm not changing anything, and that's it. But this is how I recommend doing it. This covers VPNs, booting. It doesn't tell you how to boot, which I could make a video on, which I will not do that. But this basically tells you defense. It tells you how to protect from booting. It kind of busts a lot of myth. It kind of exposes the 2-year-old kid that the ones that say he's going to boot you offline in Call of Duty, or the nerd that sits in his bedroom all day, that has no hope, that literally sits and thinks he knows a thing or two about internet, and most people, including the nerd himself, know how to change his IP address. So, in other words, this is basically my guide, or this. It's not really a guide. I mean, I don't know why. I look on YouTube and I just can't find a real in-depth guide on all of this explained and something that is easy for people to understand. A lot of people, when they speak about this, they're talking about VPNs, encryption tunnels, yada, yada, yada. No, no, no. I leave that stuff out. I just try to make it simple. A, B, B. That's why I use the pictures to kind of give you a visual diagram of what's going on, to give you the picture. I could show you my inside of my router, but I don't want to show my IP address. Right now, I don't feel like going through editing and blurring everything out and showing everything. So I don't really have time for that. I have no problem with showing it, nor do I care. I just don't feel like changing my IP address again. So I've already changed it once, and I don't want to do it again. It doesn't hurt me to do it again. I can do it in 5 seconds, but the point is I just don't want to intentionally do that. And I don't think anyone wants to intentionally give their IP address out, unless they're trolling people like I do sometimes. But in this case, that's about it. I mean, I think in the next video, I might do another one of these kind of episodes where I go over on how to be pretty much brute force proof, and go over what is brute force, how it works, and how people get Rockstar Social Club crews taken, how it works, who does it, what they use to do it, and how easy it is to do it, and how to protect yourself from common break-ins, pass-throughs, and common stuff to get your password and your account and steal it from you. And this is a big issue that people's been talking about for years. But as far as I know, I'm gonna kind of wrap it up here. If you guys want me to make that video on how to be basically brute force proof and how to set up, extra factor security as far as Google and PlayStation, because I can create brand new accounts and I can show you what I would do, um, and how I walk you through each step of securing your Gmail, different security from secure email, encrypted email, and private chats, everything to passwords and on and on. So I can really get into the how to protect your PlayStation account from being stolen, how to protect your credit card information, how to make sure that your account has never been stolen, and if your account has been stolen, how to get it back really easily and really fast and quick. And a lot of people don't know about this, so I can make this video. And if you guys want me to make that video, let me know, and I will come back here again when I have the time. And if I get enough support on this video, and I see a lot of comments, and I see where people want me to go ahead and make another video about password security, internet security, and I also would come back and retouch on Wi-Fi security, because Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi SSIDs, and that can be compromised too, and how to change your Wi-Fi name and make some cool, funny, quirky stuff. So I could come back and touch on all that and security and passwords, and I'm just gonna go ahead and dump pretty much everything I know about that in the public space, because I don't really care. But half of the stuff that I'm saying is publicly known by people that know about this stuff, but most people don't. And this guide kind of, for people that know about this stuff, they can just click off this video and never watch another one of my pod. I won't say podcast, but another one of these long videos ever again. But for the people that really, really is interested in having security and protecting themselves and having a skill and knowing more about their internet company and their routers, and are curious about how to protect against DDoS attacks, and how to have little kids or even sometimes grown men that sits in their mom's basement 24/7 that don't have a job and smoke weed all day, and how to tell those people to fuck off with a straight face and tell them to come at me, bro, and get in a party and troll the shit out of them by changing your IP over and over until they get pissed and kick you out of the party, which I've had that happen to me before. Long story. But I mean, if you guys want to see more of these type of videos, I got a new microphone, I got a new setup. So if you guys want to see more, um, just let me know. So. This has been Neon Gaming, and I'm out, I guess. I don't know, but I haven't uploaded a video, and I don't know when this video is gonna get on my channel because of the upload time. But hopefully, it doesn't take 40 years to get it on YouTube. So but my upload speed is really fast. Up and down gigabits, so it shouldn't take that long. But when I get it up there and post it up, change the description, and we'll whip something up and we'll get it started. So, anyhow, hope you guys have a good day. Good night, good evening, good morning, all over the world, whoever you are, wherever you are. Have a good day. And this has been Neon Gaming, once again, returning from the pit of hell which I come from to talk about internet. So, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.